My name is Kirk Reagan, and today we're going to talk about the age-old question of should I go to the airlines right away at age 32, or should I stay into the Air Force and retire and then go to the airlines? So the first thing I want to point out is the current year's, the FY25 aviation bonus, what it's going to be. So the current year is going to be $35,000 a year. But for those in the aviation commitment that is going to be ending in FY26, there is a demo program where it is going to be $45,000 a year with $100,000 up front. So if you're going to stay from 32 to 42, call it 10 years, $100,000 up front, we take the remaining 350, and that's going to be paid over the remaining years. Now, if we look at FY26, that's going to be $50,000 a year and $200,000 up front. That is an amazing amount of money. So these are things that are going to need to be considered. If we just look at the taxation of that, if you had $200,000, let's say it's all in the 24% tax bracket, they're going to take out $48,000. You'd have $152,000 left over. If I just took that $152,000, I stuck it in the bank, I invested it in, let's say, the S&P 500 that's been returning 11% per year. If I did that for the next 33 years, now that is a large assumption that it would actually return that over the year, but if it did, that's going to come out to almost $4.8 million, just that $200,000 bonus. So it is something to consider.
All right, so let's look at some financial planning software here. So I use Right Capital, and here today we're going to be looking at Joe Pilot. He's age 32. For the simplicity of things, I just made him single. Again, age 32. We're looking at what his total net worth is right now. If we look at the investment accounts, he's got a Roth IRA of $113,000, and he's got in his TSP, the government funding portion of it, that is a traditional. So I need to keep that separated out, and that's going to be roughly half. He's been investing that, and he's getting down to $56,000 for the matching, and he's got $113,000 in his own Roth. And then I also have him set up with a little bit of an emergency account here with $30,000. All right, keeping things nice and simple. We're going to look at how it's invested. So I just have it invested in Vanguard's VT. Really what that is just a de facto for a well-diversified fund. It includes both large cap, small cap in the US as well as international. So it is a 100% equity fund, but it is that diversified index fund, and that's covering for both. So that's more like what you would have if you were in like a 2075 fund, something that where the life cycle funds haven't kicked in to start bringing in the G and the F fund. So it kind of represents what that might look like. And then just a manual balance here of $30,000 in cash. Actually, it's really in a high yield savings account there in Joe's taxable account. All right, so I have two scenarios here. This first one is retire and then airlines at 42. And over on the right side, we have airlines right away. And already we can see here where this is going to end up. This is at the end of the plan, 15 million, and here directly to the airlines at 6 million, slightly smaller probability of success. But I really want to dig into what the assumptions here are. So Joe's retirement age. So in both cases, I assumed that he flew for the airlines all the way until age 65. I looked at a low planning horizon. We're going to swing back at the end, and we're going to push it up to 100, kind of see the full impact there. The retirement monthly expenses I had at $13,200. A lifestyle creep here. What I had him start out off is he's just finishing his captain years, and he just pinned major, so he had a pretty low pre-retirement living expenses, and that's down at $4,000. So that doesn't include his housing. I assume that he's renting the entire time. Probably not a great assumption, but just to keep the costs relatively the same, and it's the same for both cases, so it shouldn't have much of a factor there. So we're looking at $4,000, and then this lifestyle creep is $12,000 per year. This $4,000 is per month. And so what I did with this lifestyle creep is I looked at taking $12,000 a year, so $1,000 every month, and then I put this large inflation factor on here and had it going up every year. So this is going to start from calendar year 25, and it's going to go all the way until Joe's retirement, and then at retirement, that's where it's going to fix back to this $13,200, and that's just to account for growing expenses from $4,000 to $13,200. All right, so now I look at his base salary there. Again, he just pinned major. He's over 10 years. He's going to be making 108.9. He's got a BAH there of just over 34,000 and a BAS just under 4,000, and these are all per year. His flight pay is going to be $1,000 a month at this point, and that will take him to 12,000 a year. And the pension income here in this particular software, it doesn't inflate until the pension income starts. And so this is a high pension amount, but it's being inflated by me until age 42. So I look at what it would be if he was a retired colonel right now, and with the 40% for blended retirement system, and then I just inflated it to 2.5%. So it's roughly like 53,000. If I go all the way out for 10 more years, he's going to be making roughly 68,000. And that's just a nuance of this planning software. It doesn't inflate pensions until you actually start taking them. It does inflate salaries. And so now we'll look at the airline pay starting at age 32. So here I had to do something similar is if I look at the airline pay here starting at age 32, again, that's that first year where you're going to be on probation. But then you're going to be topping out. I had this one top out all the way at a wide body captain over the 12-year mark. I used just one of the airlines here and a starting salary of 104. Again, that's relatively low. I have a 6.67. So if normal inflation is 2.5, this is well above that, and that will grow your salary until where it would be at a 767 captain. And then again here for the airline pay for 42, I kind of had to do the opposite because it will inflate these salaries. So if I put 104,000 down here at age 42, it's going to inflate that at a significant amount before it starts. So what I had to do was look at taking this at a much lower salary at 62,000. So it will inflate to basically become the inflated value of 104, which is roughly 133 when he starts. And we'll see that later. All right. And then I looked at the bonus that somebody who's staying in the Air Force would get. So that 100,000 up front, and then I took the remaining 350 and divided it by 9 and got that extra bonus. Again, taxes will be taken out of that. And then for the savings, I looked at while he's in military, have him save 16% of his pay. And then in both of the times, they'll go at 16% in the 401ks. And if you look here, I have that primary match set to 16%. This is one of the common arguments that I hear made is that there is that large contribution that airlines make towards retirement funds, and that's where I have that 16%. If you look at the TSP, that's down at that 5% because that's what you're going to get from the government. All right, so now let's kind of see how it flows out. If we look at the first one here, airlines at 32, we're going to take this all the way back to age 25. He's making 104,000 for the airlines. His expenses there at 48,000. That's at $4,000 a year. There's this housing. This is the other goal. So this is that lifestyle creep. So kind of just lump this in with living expenses, and then federal and FICA, and then here's the planned contribution. So he's actually going to be bleeding about $37,000 in this year. And so he's going to bleed through basically his entire emergency savings account, but it's going to start growing. And if we look at, like, let's say 10 years down the road, now his salary's up there at 199,000, living expenses, and here's that inflated lifestyle creep there going up to 31,000. But again, this happens for both cases. The housing is slowly increasing, and so are the federal taxes, and so is the Roth contribution. All right, if we look all the way out to, let's say out here at 51, again, those are all going up, and then that Roth 401k still contributing out. And then if we look at, like, let's say age 64, that's going to be the last year that he's flying for the airlines. His salary is going to be $824,000. We look at the expenses. Basically, this living adjustment is now ballooned way larger than the living expenses that originally started there. So a huge living expense there, but he is making $824,000. Again, the tax payment is very large, Social Security, and there's your Roth. Again, remember that he is getting some contributions from his employer. And now he's got $60,000 in that year left over, so we're going to go ahead and save that as well. But then if we click over into the year after he retires, now we're going to look at those inflows. He's got nothing coming in, and he's got that living expenses. So if we looked at what the living expenses were before he retired, that was 105 and 253, so roughly 358. And then when we go to the year after, 366. So it kind of lines up, and that's why I did it that way. Obviously, the housing is probably going to be larger, but that living expense is going to be, some some of that's going to actually be in that housing. All right. But look at this huge net cash flow. So he's no longer working. He doesn't take Social Security yet, and he has no pension. So he's going to be bleeding $482,000 a year. And now if we continue to take it out, now he's going to be taking Social Security. He's going to get that. That's going to offset, but he's still bleeding out $527,000 a year. All right. So now let's look at the retire first. So we're going to bring it all the way back to 2025, and the salary there at $120,000. The other income here, that's your BAH and BAS. And if you look at the salary there's Joe's base salary and then also the flight pay. All right. And the expenses goals, again, this is that lifestyle creep, and he is saving $21,000 because that salary, those total inflows are $160,000 compared to somebody who went and separated right away and is only making $104,000. So there is some net savings there that Joe's going to be taking. So now 1 year later, now he got the bonus. Okay, so there's his base salary, there's his flight pay, there's that $100,000 bonus, there's his BAH and BAS. So now the income for that year, $265,000, and then we're going to be looking at the expenses. So a whole bunch of money saved that year, and that's just going into that taxable account, and it's going to grow all the way until he retires. All right. Then the next year, that bonus is going down to $38,000, but still a significant amount saved. And if we take that all the way out to right at retirement there, he's still saving $50,000. But that next year, he's going to start at airline pay, salary, but he's still getting the pension. Now look at this. He's going to be bleeding out $10,000, almost $11,000 a year in that first year. But if we continue to look even down the road, airline salary now is at $219. He's still going to be pulling from his retirement accounts almost to the tune of $8,000 there. If I go all the way out to 63, he's still roughly bleeding that same amount, 8 to 12,000 in that range every year. So he's never going to be saving any additional funds. He's just going to be saving what's in that Roth IRA. So a little bit different from the airline Joe. He's going to be making more money as that right seater, and so he's going to be able to put away a little bit more at the end. All right, so now let's look at just past retirement. Now Joe's still got that pension coming in, and yes, he's going to be bleeding a significant amount, but it's $395,000. If we look at when Social Security is being taken, now Social Security plus the pension, look at this net flow. That net flow is minus $330,000. If we look at what the airlines would be at 32, that same year he's bleeding $500,000. So a difference there of almost $170,000. And that's really what makes this so profitable to stay in and retire. All right, so let's go back and look at the analysis again. And so we did this at age 76. So if you go in and do actuary tables for a male that is age 32, what is the life expectancy according to actuary tables? It comes up with 76. So the interesting thing here is when we look at the comparisons of these two plans, because Joe here, that one that stayed in, got those huge bonuses, his amount of funds is growing significantly higher there at the beginning. And it'll continue to grow because he's not pulling anything out. Where Airline Joe, right away, it's going to be less because he doesn't have that pension to help out, and it starts off slow. So they're going to finish at retirement at 11.4 for the retired Joe and 7.7 for the Airline Joe. But this is the more interesting piece, I think, because the Airline Joe, because of that huge $500,000 bleed each month, he actually doesn't have, he's going to basically pull all of his investment money out. So it's not going down very significantly, and he's going to do just fine. But see how that's so level versus retired military Joe, he's not pulling enough. And so his investment accounts are going to continue to grow. All right, so now let's look at the analysis here, but let's change these planning horizons all the way out to 100. And what you can see here is Airline Joe is now at 0%. Now he has a probability of success of 40%, and here is 89%, but he's got $27 million. So now let's look at that chart again, is we can see that that's right about when Airline Joe is going to run out. So if he lives to 100, he will actually just finish up with about $0 at age 100 versus military retiree Joe is going to be at $35.6 million. So I hope you found this helpful.
So while the decision to stay in the Air Force or to get out is not just a financial decision, today I only looked at the financial piece, but I did want to make those arguments and make sure that you see at least the financial piece in when you're making that decision. So I hope you found this helpful. And if you liked it, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and subscribe. And if you've got a question or a comment about my analysis, go ahead and throw it in the comments below and I'll be happy to discuss it. Thanks for listening.
Information provided in this video is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, tax, or legal advice. I am not your financial advisor, and you should consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions. All investments involve risks, including the potential loss of principal. Past performance is not indicative of future results. This video does not endorse any specific investment or strategy. By watching this video, you agree that I am not responsible for any financial outcomes based on the information provided.